How's it going, everybody? I'm Sam Lee, reading for art of Leonid Melikov, and welcome to Gaming Inc.'s review of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. A 2.5D side-scrolling Prince of Persia is not something I've honestly expected to see from Ubisoft, but yet, here we are with Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. This new game is a spin-off, and Ubisoft has decided to go back to the old-school Metroidvania route to the original titles from the SNES days. I was not very happy when I first saw the announcement for this game, and honestly, just thought it was super lame and a complete slap to the hardcore fans. However, I was completely wrong in my assumption. Not only did Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown take me by surprise, I was also blown away by many aspects, including gameplay, voice acting, and the soundtrack, and here is why. Welcome to our review of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. You play as Sargon, who's one of the members of the elite group of warriors called the Immortals. The Persian prince Ghassan all of a sudden went missing, and it is the Immortals' duty to find and rescue him, because otherwise, Persia is going to be in great danger without a prince. We won't be discussing why he went missing and how it all happened, because that will be going into the big spoiler territory. With that being said, that is all you need to know as far as the basic premise goes. The game does have an interesting cast of characters, and the voice acting is also very well done. The voices fit the characters' looks, personalities, and style, and that goes for both main characters and side quest NPCs that you meet throughout this epic adventure. My biggest gripe with the story is that some of the twists happen a bit too fast, and because of that, the story's pacing felt a bit weird. The story itself is more than serviceable, and the twists could have been a lot more interesting if they didn't happen just so abruptly. The story is told through fully voiced dialogue and in-game cutscenes that usually occur when you are about to encounter a boss battle or a big reveal is about to happen, which, of course, adds more to the immersion and atmosphere. Overall, there's an enjoyable story here for sure, but unfortunately the pacing kind of hampers it a bit. With the story out of the way, let's talk about where the game really shines, which is the soundtrack, controls, and gameplay. I've played many Metroidvanias throughout my gaming career, and I have to say I was more than pleasantly surprised with how well Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown handles its core gameplay systems, including the combat and pacing of introducing new mechanics to the platforming and puzzle solving. Just like most Metroidvania, it starts a bit slow. Sargon doesn't really have a lot of traversal, power, or combat capabilities. However, as you play through the game and start to conquer bosses and gain new special time-powered abilities, the gameplay just becomes sublime. There is a great variety of traversal puzzles, and I'd rather not give any examples, simply because they are too good and are best experienced when discovered and solved on your own. The best way to put it is that the puzzles are well thought out and are really, really clever. Whoever came up with their designs and ideas did a fantastic job on the dev team. They're both fun to think about, and most importantly, quite satisfying to solve, and are very rewarding. Just like any Metroidvania, you'll be doing a ton of backtracking in order to gain access to either completely new unexplored areas, or secrets, and treasures that were hidden in plain sight. Thankfully, the game does a pretty good job providing you with a variety of fast travel points, so you don't have to spend and waste your time getting back to certain areas. The boss fights are also incredibly fun and well designed. At first, they may seem impossible, but after a few practice run and retries, it's easy to get the hang of their patterns and understand their combat routine. The early bosses are quite easy, as you can imagine, but the later ones, do they start to pose a challenge, especially on harder difficulties. As I said already before, I don't want to talk too much about them, because that would also go into spoiler territory. But let's just say there was not a single boss in this game that I did not like. Sure, I liked some more than others, but none of them are overly complicated or cheap in terms of how they fight by any means. It's rare for a game to have boss fights where a majority of them give the player a good experience. So, big kudos to the boss fight design team over at Ubisoft Montpellier, which is the same developer team that was responsible for Rayman Legends. The combat system in Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is fantastic. At first, it seemed a bit too simple and basic, but as I played and got deeper into the game, I realized that simplicity does not always mean bad. In this game's case, the simplicity of the combat is what makes it so good. You have your standard 3-hit combo, and special abilities you can pull after you have filled a certain amount of the power gauge. Think of it like your super move for the extra damage at the end of your regular attack combos. As you defeat the bosses and find secrets, you can also gain more combat powers that you can later swap around. Believe it or not, the game's combat reminded me quite a bit of the original God of War titles, but in a 2.5 format, and that's because Sargon has a variety of ways to juggle his enemies in midair until their death. It would not be a good combat system without the fantastic and responsive controls. Everything feels tight and fun to press. The animations are slick, and the visual and physical feedback on the screen is also great. Basically, the game manages to nail every aspect that is vital to having a great combat system. The game does not have any kind of leveling or any sort of skill tree that you'd normally come to expect. Instead, the game relies on Sargon's neck chain that is able to carry multiple amulets at a time. There are a ton of amulets to collect, and these amulets provide a variety of passive bonuses, like adding a 4th or even 5th additional attack to your regular 3-hit combo, or gaining health back anytime you parry an attack. Sargon is able to parry regular attacks along with certain special attacks that glow yellow when the enemy is about to do it. If the player can time and parry the special attack, then Sargon will do a really badass kill animation that is in the form of an execution. Some bosses also have such an attack, and if parried, you will deal a great amount of damage in return and save yourself from getting one shot if you already are halfway dead, depending on your difficulty setting. Then, there are red glowing attacks can only be dodged and not parried by pressing the dodge button while dodging to either side. Mastering the combat system is the fun part of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. It can be extremely satisfying to play if you're good at reading and reacting to the enemies and boss's moveset. Thankfully, the game does have 4 different levels of difficulty to choose from. If you just want to play the game and finish the story without worrying about being good at the game, then you may do so. If you're a player who enjoys a good challenge, then I highly recommend you play on the Heroic or Immortal difficulty, which is the hardest one in the game. In a nutshell, Ubisoft Montpellier did a phenomenal job at crafting fantastic gameplay, platforming, and combat systems that complement one another from beginning to the very end. However, as it is with most Metroidvanias, some people might find the beginning a bit too slow, and the lack of traversal abilities a turnoff until later in the game. This is just something that comes with the territory of Metroidvania-style titles, and you may either accept it or not. Regardless, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown does a lot of things objectively well for a game in the genre. The visual and overall feel of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown won't blow you away. If you're looking for insane true next-gen graphics, you won't find it here. This is not a game that you buy or play to impress yourself or your friends. This is a game that you play for its awesome gameplay and tight combat controls. But that doesn't mean the game is bad looking, it just simply means the visuals aren't everything when it comes to having a good game. However, the art style is fitting and consistent all throughout. What impressed me the most about the game's world is the variety of different regions throughout the entire map of the game. You have mazes, underground areas, sewers, temples, forests, and much more, and each of these regions all fit really well throughout the world. You won't ever come across a jarring transition of one area to the next. The same applies to the enemy variety and boss fights. No enemy really feels the same when you're fighting them, and they all look unique and different enough. Many games suffer from not having variety of enemies, but that is not the case with this game, and the same goes for the boss fights. While the visuals won't blow you away in Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, what will blow you away is the soundtrack. The game's composer for boss fights is none other than Gareth Coker, who is mostly famous for Ori and the Will of the Wisp soundtrack, which is also phenomenal. In addition, an Iranian-born composer, Mentrix, was also responsible for the rest of the game's soundtrack. Since Mentrix is an Iranian-born individual, he was able to perfectly capture the feel of Persia. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown was a pleasant surprise for me personally. 2024 has barely started, and we already have a fantastic game on our plate. While it may not be your fully fledged, insanely high-budget title like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or the upcoming Star Wars Outlaws from Ubisoft, that does not mean this game doesn't deserve any recognition or a playthrough. If you're into Metroidvanias or just want to play a great game, then I highly recommend that you play Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. The game's awesome combat system, brain-teasing puzzles, and cool universe is not the one that you want to miss out on. I had a great time with it, and I believe you will as well. As I previously said, my biggest gripe was the story pacing and how fast the plot twists come along. Play this game for its sublime gameplay, great cast of characters, fun platforming, and cool boss fights. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one out. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown will be getting a final verdict score of 9 out of 10. And this concludes Game Instinct's review of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. To see more reviews and content like this in the future, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, this has been Sam Lee, and until next time.